What is it like? There's something evolving. Right when we come, the world keeps revolving. They say the next big thing is that the revolution. But to me it seems like that it's all just a little bit of history repeating.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Yester Queer, Carroll County LGBTQ Info Project. My name is Todd Camp. I am the Executive Director of Yester Queer, and I'm so thrilled to see so many of you here tonight. This is amazing. It's a new venue for us. I want to give a special shout out to Mr. John Carney for inviting us to the usual. The usual has its own gay history, as you will soon learn. Get this back. So tonight's talk, welcome to the other side of Magnolia, celebrating decades of LGBTQ plus life and legacy along the Near Southside's most iconic avenue. We are super excited to bring you this program. As many of you may know, this street has had a long, illustrious past. Sometimes good, sometimes not quite as good. But I'd like to introduce my special guest tonight. We have Ms. Megan Carroll Henderson from the Near Southside 4R. Pleased to be in partnership with them on this event. We also have Ms. Carolyn Miles, former owner of Cowgirls Oasis, which is now the Chatterroom Lounge. And Mr. Mike McDermott, a local historian, and I'm doing my good talk show host guy, the author of Fort Worth Fairmount District. So we've got an esteemed panel tonight. Now, before we get started, I just want to remind everybody, I don't want this to be a lecture. I'm looking for more of a conversation. So if you have thoughts or anecdotes or stories to share, please raise your hand, chime in, and share. But I will get us started with like a little background about the street. So Magnolia Avenue began as a bustling corridor in the heart of Fort Worth's Near Southside, a neighborhood of charming bungalows, bustling shops, and thriving community spirit. But as the city expanded outward in the 60s, new suburban developments lured residents away, leaving Magnolia and its neighboring streets to fall into decline. What was once a vibrant community artery had become a shadow of its former self. A place where decay and desperation quietly took root. As Fort Worth's downtown redeveloped and the notorious Hell's Half Acre was cleared to make way for the new Tarrant County Convention Center, the seedier side of the city seemed to drift south. So in the 1970s, Magnolia was lined with rundown shops, dive bars, and adult businesses where cheap thrills often hid stories of quiet desperation. The area became known for its bad bars and derelict shops. And one of the things that, I just lost my page.
We'll just say bad is roughly.
It was bad.
I mean, it's roughly. Kind of great.
But we had, so one of the businesses back in that time, because we're talking 1971 here, so we saw the opening of the Southside Art Theater, which later became Jerry's Art Flicks, and this was just down the street from us. And right next door, Eve's Art Flicks. I love the inclusion of the word art in an attempt to disguise what was really going on there. These were some of Fort Worth's most notorious adult businesses. Why does this keep disappearing? But there were many raids and crackdowns throughout the city. Downtown Fort Worth had a number of adult theaters that were raided on a regular basis, and this particular business managed to last for almost a decade, surprisingly enough. And thanks to the efforts of Mr. Mike McDermott, he actually found pictures of the original building when it was an adult theater. These are probably...
Ask people if they know what it is.
Oh, yeah, I will. And so does anybody have any idea what building this might be today?
You can do it. You can guess, guys.
Anyone?
Raise your hand if you have a guess.
10:55.
Police department. That would be a nice turnout.
You're getting close, Derek.
Okay, across the street, it is now Shaw's.
There you go. Patio and the bar and grill right there.
And David Shaw was one of the investors who bought the original building. And then he decided he didn't want it. He sold it. He now leases it. But he leases the whole building, and part of it used to be, and I think Todd has a picture maybe of Scampy's. I think it was part of those pictures.
That will be coming. Uh-oh.
If anybody's been here in the neighborhood a long time, you might remember Scampy's Grill, which was part of what's now Shaw. Scampy's Mediterranean Cafe.
Yes. We've got a picture coming up.
Which was owned originally by a gay couple, or a couple of gay guys. I don't think they were a couple. Tim and Joe. And I used to go there all the time. And yeah, the picture comes up.
Yeah,
But,
we'll be down in
we'll come up in a minute. But I've actually been here in the neighborhood since 1984. And I bought my first house when I was 9. I was a
Nice
socialist
try.
child, nice try. But no, it was just out of college, and everybody in my family thought I had lost my mind to move over here. It was pretty seedy, and the neighborhood itself was pretty bad. A lot of crime, a lot of gangs, a lot of gang signs, just spray painted or a lot of graffiti. But I became really interested in the neighborhood because 3 generations before that, my family actually started out here, and I didn't even know that till I moved here. But yeah, that was still the closed down version of Jerry's. I think it might have even been open in '84.
Oh yeah, they closed in the 80s. Early 80s, yeah.
Yeah, it might have been open, might have been closed, but I remember the signs. I remember seeing that there, and some of the other. We had some pretty good knife fights on this street back in the day.
A few murders too.
And then, well, that happens when you whip the knives out. You often get murdered. But yeah, it was a lot of crime going on, a lot of seedy bars, a couple of strip clubs. One was on 8th Avenue, and one was, I think, somewhere up and down.
Here's another one. I'm not sure if you remember, Mike, but just down the street, there was another adult bookstore called Palace Books.
Yes, I remember Palace Books.
And Palace Books, Mike remembers it. I don't remember it that well. I'm a frequent card. So Palace opened in 1974. It was also one of the first businesses to advertise in the very first queer newspaper Fort Worth had, which was called Community News in 1974.
Yeah.
That's an ad from,
Wow.
Anybody care to guess what 1111 Magnolia is today?
Gosh, I don't even know. I don't know. 1111. That's 1053. It's further west. On the other side.
You're close. It's Heim Barbecue.
Oh my God! I should know that. 1113 next door was my great uncle's grocery store was on the corner of Magnolia and Henderson. This is right
Oh,
next
yeah.
door.
Yeah. So because of Magnolia's rougher reputation at the time, it also became a natural home for early bars and gathering places for LGBTQ people. So at the time, of course, queer bars were not very well accepted. They were always found in the worst parts of town. Hence, welcome to Magnolia.
Well, they didn't, they wanted to be where nobody else would go.
Exactly.
You want to be in the side of town that, no, they're not going to find us over here. Nobody wants to come over here. It's too scary.
So the first LGBTQ bar that opened on the Magnolia area was a little club called the 500 Club in 1975. This you probably might recognize the building itself because the building itself is still there. And it's this odd-shaped white building just across the street from the Moncrief Cancer Center. It began as a series of small eateries, starting with Ware's Sandwich Shop in the early 40s. You can still see the brickwork W on the side of the building. In its heyday, the bar featured live music such as organist Chester York, as well as screenings of movies, weekly screenings of Mary Hartman. This was before RuPaul, so we didn't have a whole lot to choose from at the time. And they also did a parody of late night TV called Ronnie Carson, dishing gossip on local celebrities in town in a show called The 500 Follies, which you saw in the previous ad there.
Todd, was this? I may be confused. Is this the one that later became? I think was it called the 500 Club?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 500 Club. I think it actually became a Hispanic bar for just a short period of time after the gay bar closed, and then its proximity to the church across the street made it impossible. So for many years, City Vending used it for storage, and now the Moncrief Cancer Center has purchased it, and it's about to be torn down, which is a shame because it's a really cool little building, but we were very fortunate. Someone from Moncrief let us go inside and take some pictures. This is the interior of the 500 Club. The walls are curved inside as well. I do remember that. And we saw some remnants of a mural that used to be inside, but I'm not sure what it was of.
Oh.
Just across the street, right near the corner of Hemphill and Magnolia, there was a bar called Switch. It was actually on Hemphill, but it was just right there at the corner next to what used to be the old drugstore. This first ad appeared in March of '76, advertising it as the new beer bar with a tagline on a two-way track. I don't know why. I don't know if there was a railroad nearby. I mean, I guess the furthest one down was South Hemphill, but and then in May of '79, the grand opening of the Downtowner appeared, promising a free buffet and draw beer. Both bars are located in the building next door to the old pharmacy at Hemphill and Magnolia, which I think has since been torn down and is now a parking lot. I've not been able to find a picture. I wish I could. Our host bar tonight, The Usual, has its own gay history. So, home to several bars over the years. It included two queer ones. The space was known as the Banjo Lounge as far back as 1961, but an ad in the October 1984 issue of the local queer newspaper Lambda Community News asked readers to come support the gay movement into Old Magnolia Avenue's facelift. Unfortunately, I don't think the banjo lasted until 1985, so it was short-lived. It came back as a queer club in 1996 called Neon Nights. This one's interesting because the owners decided to somewhat foolishly publicly advertise a lock-in party where they locked the doors and had all the dancers perform naked until the Fort Worth Vice Squad came knocking. Needless to say, they didn't make it till August of that year. But today it's thriving as the usual.
I have something I didn't know if you knew this, Todd. How many of you knew that you're actually, especially in this section, you're sitting inside an old house?
Oh, yeah.
That's the fireplace. And the reason it's so high up is that the house was built, they were built on pier and beam, so it was about 3 feet off the ground. And that's the old fireplace from the house. And somewhere, I could not find it, I was digging from those pictures in my book. I had one of the ice cream parlor next door, and it showed part of the house still sitting here, big 4 square, but built in 1910. So that's the oldest thing here, I guess, besides me. That fireplace.
So just the other side of Hemphill, which was itself, of course, the home to a number of queer bars, businesses, organizations, and including the very first church, LGBTQ MCC Church. There was another bar called Sir Bud's, 1983. Love me the ad. Now that's back when we knew how to advertise a gay bar. I mean, come on. Owner Bud Montgomery opened the bar in December of 1983. And then all the way down the street where Magnolia dead ends into South Main, there was a bar called, believe it or not, the Rainbow Lounge, not to be confused with the more famous Rainbow Lounge over on South Jennings. This one was advertised and talked about a lot in gay press, but I don't know if it ever actually opened. It was supposed to be a lesbian bar. and you guys might recognize the building. This is currently the home of JPS, I believe. Yeah.
The foundation.
Yeah.
It is also where Nirvana plays.
Oh, that's right. It was a rock club. Yeah, Nirvana's supposed to play there. There you go. Now it's just GPS offices. They have no idea what went on in their walls. Select guests were invited to an open house on October 8th, 1992 for a new bar dubbed Fort Worth Party Bar. That bar was Magnolia Station. Maggie's, as regulars called it, was one of 3 bars owned by the late Paul Wallace under the cooperative title Across the Street Incorporated, along with the 651, and of course, Across the Street. I actually went to this opening. This was the very first gay bar I ever went to. I was their opening night, and I met my husband, and we were married for 24 years in this bar, so it was a very special place in my heart. The walls were covered with corrugated tin, and the decor was accented with scrollwork railings and decorative braces from the demolished 1849 Village Opera House. That's once stood at the intersection of University Drive and the Trinity River. I think I saw a movie.
Never knew that. That is very cool. I used to go to that opera house to the movies.
Yeah, I saw movies when I was at TCU there. Isn't that cool? I love that.
It's amazing.
I was delighted to also, the folks at UTA Special Collections have been digging out some amazing pictures as they scan old Star Telegram and Shorthorn photos. And this is a Miss Gay Texas at Large pageant at Magnolia. It's very rare to get a picture in the interior of gay bars, especially on older bars. So you're gonna get a taste. There's a couple more here. Maggie's closed sometime in 2003. It later reopened as a country bar called The Station in 2006. And then the next year it became the city's shortest lived queer bar, opening as Tricks and closing in just 4 days. A couple guys from Waco that came up and opened it. What happened? They charged cover. Yeah. Nothing will kill a queer bar faster than charging cover, especially in Fort Worth. Now, as a Maggie's regular, I was tickled to learn that after the bar closed and the other two, it later became repurposed as the Mother's Milk Bank of North Texas. Always wanted to go in. That's the front entrance to Maggie's. Used to have like a big tarp thing over it. And now the building is boarded up. Any idea what's going to happen with that?
It is also owned by Moncrief Cancer Institute, and it will be eventually part of their expansion plan for Oncology Center. So, not a sexy story, unfortunately.
Yeah. And what's interesting to a historian like me is they remodeled the building once after Maggie's and after Tricks and all that, and they tore this brick off, and there under there was a like a 1918 building with a really cool facade, and you can see where the windows used to be and everything, and then they bricked it all back up again, and now it'll probably come down.
Well, this building used to have big plate glass windows. I think I found pictures of when the bar didn't pay its taxes and had several officers taking the cash register out, and you could see the windows.
The front of this building. Yeah, they put like a commercial front on where the house used to be. Yeah.
That's crazy. In the mid-1950s, this space at 1263 West Magnolia was once called the Oasis Cafe and later the Oasis Inn, and then it became the Oasis Lounge sometimes in the late 1980s, eventually becoming a lesbian night spot in 1991, known only as Oasis. And then, in 1995, one of our panelists, Michael, you'll pass Carolyn the mic. Carolyn Miles left behind a 10-year career at American Airlines to open her own lesbian bar to be called Cowgirls Oasis. Unfortunately, it proved to be more difficult than she ever imagined. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Carolyn?
Apparently there had been trouble at the bars on Magnolia Avenue, especially the one at, I haven't changed a bit. Especially the one at Cowgirls Oasis. spots. The Fairmount Homeowners Association decided that they did not want any bars open, any bars. So every time anybody applied for a liquor license, and for years, they would call the mayor, call the chief of police, call the councilman, and if it was election year especially, then all these people would send letters to the Texas Alcohol and Beverage Commission and say, no, this is not a nice place to have a bar. Well, I took them on. And at least 6 months in, and every dime I had, plus some, we got our liquor license. And since then, you've seen what happened. It's a chat room now, and the neighborhood's built up. But it was quite a battle for a while, and it made a lot of news. And it actually turned into, quote unquote, a gay issue, even though I really believed, and I quoted several times in the newspaper, quoted several times in the newspapers, that it was not a gay issue. But I didn't feel like we should be discriminated against. You know, anybody should be, just because they said, oh no, there had been so much trouble at some of the bars in the past. Well, yeah, if you go back 100 years, no telling about the knife fights and stuff like that. But we did manage to get a liquor license, and I was open for only a year with that license, but because for personal reasons, actually, I decided to go back to work for American, because my wife wanted to go back to school, and somebody had to bring in some money. But anyway, I retired from American, but my heart is still is what's now called the chat room.
That's right.
I want to say something, as a longtime member of the Fairmount Association. I'll tell you what happened. You can see a name up there, Patsy Powell. Patsy Powell. What was the name of the lady who went with an axe and smashed all the bars back before Prohibition? Carrie Nation. She was our own Carrie Nation. And she would go and raise a ruckus. I mean, half our board was gay. They didn't care, but she'd raise a ruckus. And before you know it, she would get her way. She was a one-woman bar destroyer. And we were looking forward to some good bars on the street after a lot of the crime had left. And she just fought everyone that came along.
Well, Matt said they fought the chat room too.
Yeah, I'm sure. She was.
She caused all the trouble. They called the police, so y'all had a bunch of police reports.
Yeah. So it wasn't everybody in the Fairmount Association.
Right.
She might have had a few people behind her too, backing her, but she's all gone now. She's all gone.
She won't be missed. And today, of course, it is now the chat room pub. This is you see the picture of the Oasis? No, this. Nice mural on the side. It's much nicer.
Well, people ask me why I never put a sign up that said Cowgirls Oasis, and I said, well, I didn't have enough money.
Why do you think it was called Oasis for like 40 years?
Yeah, leave the sign up, add something to it.
I think John Carney, the owner of The Usual, told me that he had the sign that said the Oasis until it disintegrated in his yard. But could have had it for the yard cottage, but. So some of the other businesses, there were a number of LGBTQ, or at least LGBTQ-friendly businesses brave enough to advertise in early queer publications, including restaurants like B.J. Keefer's, Palermo's Italian Cafe, and the aforementioned Scampi's. That is Scampi's there. Does it look familiar, Mike?
Well, yeah, Scampi's right there at the top. And then, I remember the Italian restaurants. I don't know, this is off the subject. This is a little off the subject, but I don't know if anybody remembers that Dick Van Dyke's brother, Jerry Van Dyke, tried to start a business in that building right there where it says Palmero's Italian Cafe.
Van Dyke's, yeah.
It was, and it's, what, maybe a year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a soda shop. It was just like, it's a quaint idea.
Well, here's what happened when we went there. We were, we wanted to try it out, so I went there with a couple of friends, and we ordered, and our waitress, she went up on stage to perform and never delivered our food. Because all the wait staff were performing on stage. And they would just, when it was their turn, they didn't matter if they took your order or not, they just left and went up there and performed for 20, 30 minutes. And I remember when she brought us our ice cream, it was in bowls. It was like you poured a milkshake in a bowl. It was terrible.
It was strong.
And then Jerry showed up a few times to play his guitar in like the worst looking nasty sweats you've ever seen, with holes in them and stains on them. He looked like he'd come in off the street after a binge, so I'm not sure what was going on there, but it didn't last.
Too bad. Other businesses included Guns Cleaners, which of course is the what's it called? Fort Liquor? Fort Liquor now? The Junketeria, a personal favorite.
I love the Junketeria. I think it was a gay-owned business.
It was.
I love the Junketeria.
Anybody remember Bell Book and Candle, like down near Grandma's?
Yes.
Gay-owned business.
I went in there. That was open for quite a while. I went in there with friends before I moved here, I think. Maybe not. But we just decided we wanted to go in there and see, if there was like the witch and the brew and back room going on. We were very curious.
Some other businesses, the law office of Julia Billminer, the Jeff and Rob Group, realtors. The old Plantation Restaurant, does anyone remember that? This was supposedly a very popular lesbian hangout in the early days. And Robbins at 6th Street and JB's Auto Salon. I'm sure there are many more. These are just some of the ones that I was able to find in early queer publications, but I'm happy if anyone knows of others, please share them with me, or the extra queer group. The proximity to the hospital district made early locations of some of the AIDS service organizations an ideal location on Magnolia. One of them was the Tarrant County AIDS Interfaith Network, which is now the current space of Brood. And another organization which I wasn't familiar with, the Tarrant County Medical Emergency Research Foundation, TC-MERF. They were 209 back then. And of course, the Tarrant County Lesbian Gay Alliance. Are you kidding? That's Dr. Roddy's office? Yes. In 1995, despite ongoing battles with the building's owner, the Tarrant County Lesbian Gay Alliance was able to secure an office at 1219 6th Street, just behind the Spiral Diner. Founded in September of 1980, it served as a lifeline for the community, connecting LGBTQ individuals with friendly professionals and providing information about local queer businesses. Despite being a frequent target of local cranks and even local law enforcement, the space became a hub for the queer community, hosting services like the Teen Talk Line, a resource center, and the new publication, the Alliance News. Yes, Doug, question.
Tarrant County AIDS Interfaith Network actually had two locations, one in Magnolia, the other one was 803 Magnolia.
Oh, okay.
Their LSOL support group.
Oh, cool. Excellent. Good to know.
Can you repeat that for everyone else? Yeah.
He said the Tarrant County Interfaith Network had a second location at 808 Magnolia.
Correct.
And it was?
That's where they had their LSOL AIDS support group.
An AIDS support group.
It's cool. I can find a picture of that.
Also a dental clinic.
Yeah.
Oh, dental clinic.
The dental clinic was at the 200.
Is it?
Excellent. The street was also home to other prominent organizations, including the Fort Worth Names Project for a brief period of time. The Health Education Learning Project was located there in the corner next to the Boiled Owl. And of course, as with so many LGBTQ spaces, the rise of gentrification and a profound impact on Magnolia, rising rents and changing demographics have forced many of the beloved spaces to close or change. But that's kind of the presentation portion. I'd now like to get to my panelists. What are some of your memories of Magnolia Avenue as a queer space? And think of questions if you guys have any questions for anybody as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, since you posed the question, I came out very late in life, and at age 41, and in my 40s, I decided to live my 20s again the way I should have the first time around. And yeah, some of you have been there, know that. But my first experience, my first gay bar was well, when I was not gay, and I was very much in the closet to myself as much as anybody else. I was in huge denial is not just a river in Egypt. And so I had a friend in the neighborhood. There was a lot of gay people in Fairmount early on because they're the ones who took on the old houses first before anybody didn't want to live here, including myself. But I didn't want to get it. That's why I did it. But anyway, he took me over to the bars in Dallas, and my very first bar was on Cedar Springs. But after I came out, my first really good, positive gay experience was at Maggie's. And I loved Maggie's, and I hated when it closed. I absolutely hated when it closed. It was such a great bar. There was a lot of fun there. And then, of course, over on Jennings at the, what was it before the Rainbow? Well, it was 651 for ages, and then for a little while, Hot Shots, and then the Rainbow Lounge. And I spent a lot of time over there too, but I really love Maggie's. You know, shoved my first dollar bill in the G-string there. So that was fun. Not my last. If I can get away from my husband sometime.
I'm gonna give credit where it's due. So my first gay bar in the Near Southside was a bar that you were not going to think of as a gay bar. It was the Chat Room Pub. Now, I'm gonna preface this by saying I met my first two husbands at the Chat Room Pub. So let me tell you, that story didn't go to plan. But John and Meg I was a wandering, desperate teenager from the bowels of Cleburne, Texas, trying to find city life. Thank you, Shasta. Shasta was my senior in high school, desperately trying to show me the ways of the world. And when I was trying to get out of Cleburne and the bigotry and weird things happening in Cleburne, I found my way to the Near Southside for live music, which then led me to John, who, the minute I was old enough to stop writing Coke, and Sharpie on my head, my hands, and everything else, let me into the Chat Room Pub in the first year that it was open. And what I found there was not a gay bar, but was an open-minded community that was truly a safe space for everyone in this neighborhood. Didn't matter your walk of life, didn't matter your income, didn't matter your profession, didn't matter who you were, what you did. The Chat Room Pub would take you in, they'd give you the lessons of life, they'd talk to you about how to be a better person for yourself, how to give back to your community, how to mentor someone else. And over the decades that followed, that was home base, 1263 West Magnolia. There were years I did not have a home address, that's where the mail went. And what I found was that as I figured out who I was, right? And I said to Carolyn earlier, like the story of her work, the story of what the neighborhood was, who the people were in this neighborhood. There were moments that I'd walk into that bar and John was clear as daylight would say, not you with that attitude in this building, no you don't. You better expand your mind, sis. Which meant that the moment that I figured out that those first two husbands were not exactly the right fit, and I brought my wife into the bar to need a safe space to be like, this is new Megan figured herself out. That was the first space that I felt safe. And it is still a space that I feel safe, although I don't go to the bar as often as I used to as a teenager at home. But I'll tell you, like, John set the tone for everybody else down the street, and he meant it. He carried the legacy of who had come before him, and he meant that too. And what it did is it made space for other people to figure out that a cocktail is a cocktail. So you're not drinking gay whiskey here tonight, friends. What you're doing is drinking.
It's not.
Yeah, you're drinking a good cocktail.
You mean even vodka?
Among safe people. And that was sort of the spirit of the bar. And I'm grateful for it because I think it now sets the tone today that while the labels are a little bit innocuous and we're trying to figure out what it means, like any business on this street should rise to the standard that they set, which is that if you walk in that space, you should be safe, you should be served, and you should be welcomed and celebrated for who you are. So fair play to 1263 West Magnolia.
I have a question for you, Megan. You said first two husbands. You meant first and last, didn't you?
I mean, the first and last, and now I got even more trouble at home than I know how to handle. But I'll also say, like, let me just say this. This is another, I think, tribute to the neighborhood, was that the thing that drew me in were kind of open-minded, big world people, just like you, Mike, and, you know, people who created space. I said this earlier, I'm going to say it publicly, it's worth saying. I got my big ass in a pinch because I took myself off to an Ivy League college and was big on the world, and one of my core curriculum classes at my fancy pants school was lesbian imagination in the new age. And I thought, all right, I'm from Cleveland, say it slowly like I'm in kindergarten. And I took that class, and it was provocative in every way I needed as a kid from the sticks. It really challenged me, and my only previous experience with anything outside of Cleveland was practically the chat room pub, thank God. And then I had to watch the movie Boys Don't Cry, which shocked my soul like it should anyone else watching that movie, and I promptly withdrew from college in protest and said, they are pushing their agenda on me. I'm so offended. And I marched my hiney home and went to the chat room pub and got a firm lecture from the team there that was like, you better get with the program, you're out of touch. And I'll tell you, had it not been for those life experiences that really challenged the bias and bigotry that I was given as a young person, and not having had a safe space where someone would tell you the damn truth to your face and say, oh honey, you are really toxic and you've got something bigger and you're missing out on a whole chapter of life here, I don't think I would be in this exact neighborhood today, the person I am today, raising my daughter with my wife, living a big life, and in the same group of friends who saw me through the hard, weird stuff. So
I can second that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I grew up in this neighborhood, and I owe it to the people standing in the room that I'm a big enough person to stand up for somebody else too.
That reminds me when you talk about our bars, our clubs being open and home to many people during the short period of time that the Cowgirls Oasis was open. Somehow word got out that we were welcoming to cross-dressers. And next thing you know, people from literally all over the United States would come in our bars during the week, especially like on a Tuesday or Wednesday. They were cross-dressers. They would come in and sit at the bar, just be dressed so nicely compared to the owner at that time. And I would say, well, how did you hear about us? And they would name some magazine or some, where it had gotten out that if you're ever in, Fort Worth, Texas, you are more than welcome to go to the Cowgirls Oasis. And it was so heartwarming to see these people. Had an American Airlines pilot that lived in Chicago. I remember he came quite often. Just beautiful, beautiful woman. But, that's I think, just Fort Worth, number one, but Fort Worth gays and lesbians clubs being that welcoming and that accepting of anybody and everybody.
Yeah, well done. That's great.
I was remiss in mentioning one of the other organizations that got its start right here on Magnolia, and that is, of course, Trinity Pride, which started on June 15, 2019 on the Green, as Trinity Pride was there for 2 years, and then of course we got hit with COVID. They did a virtual event that was wonderful, and this year they will be moving to South Main. But I wanted to talk to Mr. Tony Green. We are because we don't want to be left out of the festivities. Tony and the folks here at the Usual are putting on an event. Tony, you want to say a word?
We're so excited. I'll say it from here, not only for Trinity Pride Fest, but I hope you all attend. I'm black, as you all know. It's not misaligned. It's not misaligned. It's the experience. The experience that you're getting as well. It's the weekend. Trinity Pride Fest is the weekend of Beyonce. Okay, which is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for all of you if you're not going to be there, because I'll represent all of us. And I expect you to be at Trinity Pride Fest. But the weekend before, I am helping through my friend's help to put on the Long Magnolia, a little pub crawl that we're going to have. We'll start right here at the Usual, so you'll get to see some of the bars that you've seen tonight in all of their ways represented, and we'll have a special there for a section of time throughout the night. So happy hour, I think, here. Next, you can move on to the chaplain club. We know we have the Boiled Owl in there as well, and then we're going to end you guys at Grandma, and we're still maybe putting on more partners. We will keep in touch with Just the Career, so you'll see it on their pages, and we'll have a big announcement through the next few days. But we hope that you get some swag, some pride, and we'll set you up for the week before. It's right after Juneteenth. Some other things. We really want to set you guys up for that next month. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. To follow up with Tony, when we had Trinity Pride here, one of the things that I absolutely adored about this street was the way every business here embraced the LGBTQ community. You can see we have a little pop-up exhibit of some items from the places we talked about tonight. But you'll see on the barrel over there, there's a shirt that the chat room did, the Boiled Owl did, Grandmas did, the fans, they did all kinds of stuff. Promoting the gay community, and they have been absolutely nothing but supportive. I love driving down Magnolia and seeing rainbow flags, not just in June, but all year long. As one sits in the chat room every day.
Since the I want to say removal, but the departure of certain people in Fairmount back in the day, we saw a couple of names up there. We have been very welcoming, and it's been a great gay neighborhood since I moved here in 1984, and it's just gotten better. And we hope we keep it that way. We've got, as property values rise, it's hard to get the right people into the neighborhood, but most of them, it's surprising, most of the neighborhood is very, very wonderfully accepting, open-minded, and
Absolutely. Glenn, do you have a question?
What about DJ's Bar and Grill right off of Magnolia, half a block off of Magnolia on Main Street? Do you have anything on them?
DJ's, of course, was, they were in St. Louis, I believe. They, of course, it was originally, Ops Restaurant, Darlene and Josie, DJ. They had an amazing bar. It was one of the first openly gay restaurants where it was gay owned and operated. They also had huge drag shows and events. They moved over to Rosedale, with what's now the Down and Out, which was multiple gay bars as well over the years. That's my favorite thing to do is drive around town and go, that used to be a gay bar, that used to be a gay bar, that used to be a gay bar. That was a big 5 gay bars.
Or as we call it, gay cheers.
Yeah.
Gay cheers.
Does anyone else have any questions? We're throwing it open to the crowd. Or you have an anecdote or a story to tell? I can come to you if you need the mic. Yes.
What happened at the Junketeria? Like, what was the Junketeria? Junketeria was a kind of a thrift shop antique store. It was a great, weird little space. So cool, so fabulous. The owners had some health problems that we heard about, and they were quite candid to sort of say, man, this is a lot to manage in our everyday life. We've, really got a lot to make decisions about. That building was sold, and our understanding to their benefit, so it ended up being a good story for them in the phase of life that they were in. And there is a new project that will start construction. It will not salvage the Junketeria building. That building has some major, if you've ever entered the parking lot or out of the Down and Out or Junketeria off Rosedale, it is wild. 162 West Magnolia, or 162 West Rosedale. That building is going to be torn down for a new mixed-use development that'll have office space above. Originally proposed as houses, and then they met their neighbors at the Down and Out. We're like, maybe not living here every night. And then retail at the ground floor. And it is available for lease, and it would be awesome to have some cool kind of community, culturally oriented businesses there. Yeah.
Very cool. Anybody else have a story, question, or tale to spin? Anybody?
I have a thought to share. Can you guys hear me without the mic?
Yes.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to say. This neighborhood has long been a celebrated, safe, joyful place for a diverse community. The queer community finds our home here and we're proud of it, but so do many other communities. It's been economically diverse for a long time, racially diverse, religiously diverse. It's the home of Fort Worth's very first temples. It's the home of many different religious institutions that find their safe spaces here and their celebratory spaces. I think that the people who stand or sit in this room today should be advocating, talking about, promoting, and finding your own opportunities to spread that word, because, as Michael has alluded to, this is a neighborhood that faces gentrification, and in a good world, gentrification means all boats rise with the tide, we all go together, life gets better for everybody. But in an equitable world, which is the one we live in, it gets more complicated for those who are not motivated only by money, or do not come from the privilege that gives them greater allowances in the real estate market and the power structures of our city. I share that with you because my job in Near Southside every day is to advocate for the people who already have their foot here on the ground and are doing great things and are making our community richer, better, more celebrated, and to welcome through what I like to call the dad talk. I give a whole lot of people the dad talk. We're glad you're dating our daughter. Welcome to the family. Let me tell you what the neighborhood believes in, who we are, what we stand for. And so that is not something that anybody can do alone. It is a job we share together, friends, as a community, and I see people doing it all the time. But what I will encourage you to do, and I say this kind of candidly and a little bit cryptically on purpose, is to say that neighborhoods like ours, where everyone is welcome, where different belief systems exist and all walks of life have a home, are under threat from people who don't support or believe in whatever their core destructive thing is, don't believe in the equity of all people, and they regularly find ways to pick at us. And in today's Tarrant County, in today's Fort Worth, we are at greater risk than ever of the things that we hold to be just everyday valuable assets of the community being vulnerable. So if you care about something, if you believe in it, if you know it adds value to your life and safe space for other people, please, by all means, on all things holy, show up and support it, and watch carefully what the public policy is that is shaping neighborhoods like ours, because it is increasingly at risk of things that feel kind of caged. They're not obvious. You're not seeing necessarily political leaders say, gay people shouldn't have a good gay cocktail. That's not what they're saying, because that would be so obviously stupid, right, that we would all rise up in arms. But what they're doing is they're setting some kind of ugly public policy that creates a feeling of being unsettled or unwelcome. So political action is what I'm encouraging you to stay involved with, and that is not some big protest moment necessarily. It is like paying attention to your city council agenda, regularly participating in the public process at county meetings, looking carefully at who hospitals and medical centers are willing and able to treat and on what terms. Right? I mean that so sincerely. Like, this is a lovely, safe room of wonderful people. Not everyone enjoys this room. And I think as people who are enjoying one of these rooms, we have a responsibility to be vocal for others who need it. So please, like, get involved.
Amen. And to piggyback on something she said, which I know she's not going to want to talk about, but I want to mention something that I'm particularly proud of this neighborhood for. There was an incident where there was a little market down the street. Maybe you're familiar with it. Maybe you've heard of it. And one of the things, as a gay historian, people come to me, people ask me questions a lot. Has it ever been this bad? Has it ever been this bad? And I have news for you. It has been way worse. Oh my God, it's been so much worse. And yes, I know our trans brothers and sisters are fighting for their lives, literally. The one thing that I tell them is, in my 30 plus years of living here in Fort Worth, I have never in my life seen more trans people out and about in every bar, every restaurant, every business I go to. They are living their lives, they are being themselves. So that gives me hope. But the other thing that gives me hope is that market. When they did what they did, they made a non-binary person feel unwelcome and kicked them out of the market.
The people that were there protesting every single weekend, there were some queer people there, but the majority of the people there were straight allies.
Yeah, that's right.
Every weekend. They were fighting our battle for us. And the one thing that I can tell you from the early days when it was us against the world, we didn't have a whole lot of straight friends on our sides helping us fight these battles. It was us against the world. Now, it's them against all of the rest of us. So that gives me way more hope on this.
I want to piggyback on that and say that I've noticed the big change like you're talking about. And not only that, but the fact that when I came out, what I noticed about a lot of the gay community in Fort Worth is that most people, Fort Worth's gay community was very much under the radar. It wasn't out in the open like Dallas, and it wasn't an issue either, because it was pretty much under the radar. And when it finally started, people started seeing, gay people in their lives, and even learning, come on, the Baptist church and your organ player, he's gay, I'm sorry, he's gay. Your music record gay. But I've seen a lot of this in my life. I've seen people just in complete denial that, not only about themselves, but the people around them who know they're gay, they just don't want to acknowledge that at all. And a lot of that changed for the better. It really did. It changed for the better. And now what I'm seeing is a change back, because I have personal ties to someone in a very right-wing religious community. And it's something we need to keep our eyes on. It's something we need to watch. There's an undercurrent, and there's also, I don't know how to put it in a way. It's like a very subversive way. Here's what I'll say. We had a new couple in our neighborhood walk down the street, and we're very open and friendly to everybody that comes by our house. And we live on Fairmount. We have lots of young people now in the neighborhood, and they're all walking by with their little kids or out with their dogs. And this young couple came by, and I was out working the yard. My husband was up on the porch. He's right there in that beautiful Hawaiian shirt, by the way. He's gonna duck. He hates attention. That's my beautiful husband.
Hi, Stan.
Hi, Stan. But anyway, everybody say hi, Stan. Hi, Stan. But so I had this conversation, and it was really interesting. So I said, well, you're always interested in people. How'd you come to move into Fairmount? Are you from Fort Worth and all that? This figure couple was from Fort Worth, and they had moved over to Fairmount. And I said, well, how did you come on? They said, well, we have friends at our church that moved here, and they said how much they love it, and so we moved here too on their recommendation. And I said, oh, what church do you go to? And it was a big, you know the one I'm talking about.
Is it Mercy Culture? Call it out.
No, not Mercy Culture. Actually, we'll call it out, Christ Chapel. And that's a church that my mom was going to with my sister for a while, and she wasn't really worshiping there or anything. She just went for the music, because these big churches with all their money have big orchestras. They have children's programs. They put on plays. They're very attractive to people, and that's part of their, come in and join us. It's part of their policy. And so they said they went to Christ Chapel. And I said, oh, okay. And they're sitting here talking to a gay couple. And I said, my husband left, and I said, did you realize your church is anti-gay, though? We're a gay couple. I'm just real curious how you feel like. No, we're not. No, we're not. They had no idea. They really had no idea. And my husband went there. He grew up in a church community. He wanted to find a welcoming church, and when they first opened, he went there to one of their services, and he admitted he was gay. I think it was, Stan, was it in a Sunday school class? Poor Stan, he's hiding. But I think he went there, and before he left, they handed him a brochure, because he admitted he was gay and trying to find a safe space, and they handed him a brochure on conversion therapy.
How did that work out?
Not so good. And thank God. And so thank you, Jesus. And so he, and they actually, this is part of their policy. And I was about to talk about my mom. She said she went there, and there was a commercial that had just come out all over the place. That was you've seen it, the Chevy commercial, where very quickly they showed different kinds of couples that own Chevys. and there's two men with a little girl in front of their truck. And it's up on the screen like that. And he showed it, and he focused it on that, and the preacher there was like, I can't believe this is in our culture now. We have to stop this. And my mom talked to me about it later that day and said she wanted to go up and slap that preacher around. And I said, you gotta stop going there. Or if you want to, go tell him how you feel and let him know, that this isn't right and what you're doing isn't really acceptable to most people. So anyway, it's coming. I don't know. It's just a greater part of the bigger picture. Yeah.
Sneaking in the back door.
That sneaking in the back door, no pun intended.
And as a historian, we've been here before, folks. We've been here before, we won before, we'll win again.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? Or did anybody know of any other businesses that we left off, or bars or anything? I am a bar freak when it came to, that's how I got started in gay history, was trying to trace every single gay bar in Fort Worth. We've had more than 200 bars in Fort Worth. That's true story.
I will say there are still many gay businesses owned in the Near Southside. It is not just the history, it's also the future of the district. There are kind of a strong sense of allyship as well. So it is not just queer people themselves that own the businesses, but many allies who are vocal, active, engaged, standing in this room tonight, engaged in other circles that are important, advocating for public policy. So the Southside is still home to a really diverse ownership, and those businesses deserve your support. And really, when we're voting with dollars. Every day you vote with your dollars. It sounds kind of cliche, in many ways it is, but the truth is, in this neighborhood, when you choose where you're going to buy that hamburger, order that cocktail, I want you to remember that tonight you sat in this room and enjoyed a space that made room for this conversation and regularly does. There are many other businesses in the neighborhood who do. You'll see June and you'll see pride flags go up because that's a smart marketing campaign for anyone who would like your dollars, but you'll see August. And you'll still see them in the window, and you'll come December and they'll still be in the window, and that will mean something because that is really a symbol of their sincere interest in being an ally. And you'll walk by Morgan Mercantile and there will be a Black Lives Matter sign that sits in the window every day of the year, and there'll be a rainbow flag that flies, and there'll be a strong sense of ownership behind that counter that you can walk in, and there'll be someone who cares to hear your story, celebrates the artists that they partner with, and so forth. So I just share that to say it's not just the history. Like, you guys are making the history of the future Near Southside with the decisions you make today, and we will tell those stories later. And also, you should feel really vocal. Like, we are coming upon a month where you can ask a business owner or a bartender or a retail clerk behind the counter, where's your pride flag? What's going on? We've got a big month coming up. Like, how are you celebrating this big month for our community that lives here, works here, patronizes your business? Like, what's the plan, friends? Because that stuff actually matters. They listen, they care. And some of them are just not paying attention, and so it's good for you to remind them and offer to bring them a flag or something. Some of them, you'll get the response that tells you the story of what the culture of that business is, and then you'll know. Like, you will know what spaces you're safe in, and you will know what spaces other people are safe in by you inviting that conversation. And especially for, straight allies in the room who want to do something meaningful, it's one of the most meaningful things you can do is to bring the conversation up, right? Who's safe in your establishment? How do I know? How do they know? How can I help you celebrate the community that's right here at hand? More of that work is so important, and I try to do it every day, but I invite you to join me, because those symbols, they mean something, and for some people, it truly means their physical safety, and so that's really important. Also, we haven't mentioned Wildflower Intimates, and it's a Magnolia business, but I just want to say it's one of the first affirming intimate stores. So no matter who you are, what your walk of life is, if you need undergarments, that is a store that is supportive, and the owner there has been really proactive in sharing. Grace Grubik has been super proactive in saying, like, you bring your body into this store and we celebrate that body, and whatever kind of garment you're needing, we have it, and we want you to be purchasing it here, and we want you to have a really good, safe experience. So that's a cool business, and in kind of an unsexy building, like the old pharmacy building at Magnolia and Henderson.
I might be the oldest person in here, and I sincerely believe that my dollar makes a difference. My dollar makes a difference. And every time, I go to the list sometimes. If I don't know, even if it's the biggest establishment or the smallest establishment, if I don't know where they stand on my right to be on this earth and live my life the way I do, then I don't spend my dollars there. So if you're young, you got lots of dollars to spend between now and the time you get as old as I am, but make your dollars count and support the people that support you.
As we enter into June, which of course is Pride Month, Yesterqueer is going to be everywhere. We will be at Arlington Pride on the 14th. We will probably be at the Youth Pride Picnic, LGBTQ Saves Youth Pride Picnic the weekend after. And then of course, Trinity Pride is June 28th, which happens to be my birthday. Also the anniversary of the Rainbow Lounge, as everyone reminds me. But Yesterqueer will be proudly presenting a pop-up exhibit at the Amphibian, in the lobby of Amphibian Productions. And just to put in a personal plug, my band, the Bikini Whales, Forward's premier party band, featuring Mr. John Carney, owner of The Usual, and several of my friends. I think Melissa's in the house, my lead co-lead singer. We will be performing at the Bearded Lady for Trinity Pride. So you're not going to want to miss what outfits Melissa and I come up with for that one. But I'd like to close this out by just thanking all of my panelists. Thank you guys so much for coming, for sharing your stories. Megan, Carolyn, Mike, the history of Magnolia Avenue is a story of resilience and community and joy, a story that we must continue to remember and share. Please consider supporting Yesterqueer as we continue to work to preserve and celebrate our community's history. If you have stories, photos, or memories or personal items, ephemera, you see the kind of stuff that I save. I love bringing stuff out because it shows people the value that these items have, people that end up chucking this stuff in the trash. We save it, we share it, it tells our story, and it's important. And we'd love to hear your stories as well. Thank you all again, and please enjoy the rest of your evening. And thanks to The Usual and these folks for helping, Mr. John Carney, Kyle Trentham, Carino Barrett, and Andrew Nicholas. And of course, our presenting sponsor, Help, the Help Center. Thank you guys for coming.